Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be talking about abortion and we're going to be talking about transgenderism. And I'm going to be explaining why transgenderism is the next abortion. So, what do I mean by that? And I'll explain what I mean by that in this column that I wrote. And we're going to be talking about that in this video. So, don't forget to like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel and share the video because this video is based and the article that this video is based on is also based. So with that said, let's just dive right in. Not as many issues are as existential as abortion. Abortion is rightly regarded as a litmus test on the right to weed out the fake conservatives, the liberals, and the frauds. Though the Republican Party has at least three overtly pro-abortion senators, Murkowski, Collins, and Mitt Romney, being full-on pro-abortion is harder to do in the Republican Party than it was when pro-abortion John McCain was in leadership. On the other side, the Democrats have very few figures who aren't full-on pro-abortion, such as Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Manchin. Yet in either party, abortion is a major issue. Being overtly pro-abortion makes candidates virtually unelectable in the Republican Party, whereas not being pro-abortion enough invites ire from the Democrat base. Simply put, abortion is a top priority for voters in either party. And it's interesting to note, not in the column, but look at that Pennsylvania Senate primary where Dr. Oz, the TV personality, is running for the U.S. Senate as a Republican, but he is staunchly pro-abortion. And from what I understand, there's not that much polling on this primary, but that is sinking his numbers, in my opinion. If I had to explain why his numbers, he had a very good Trafalgar group polling, and then that number seems, that edge that he had in that poll seems to be gone a month and a half later. So that's just a side note. But the issue of abortion is in the mature stage of politics, whereby each party has strengthened its position towards its logical conclusion. The Democrats have become abortion on demand up through birth, whereas the Republicans are increasingly becoming no more abortion, no exceptions, and outlaw abortion, and hopefully criminalize. But with that said, this will make compromise unacceptable for either side, as it should be. Like, as a Christian, we can't compromise on this issue. What I see now is that the issue of transgenderism is following the same pattern as abortion. It has increasingly become unacceptable to call yourself a conservative and support transgenderism. But Bruce Jenner's campaign for governor resulted in dismal results despite promotion from Fox News and Newsmax. Additionally, his onboarding at Fox News drew ire from conservatives who are fed up with transvestite grifters utilizing the BoomerCon love of tokenism to co-opt their movement. Where this did not take place with homosexuality, which is just as unbiblical, might I mention, the issue of transgenderism, which is further down the slippery slope, has been a wake-up call for many on the right who were not previously committed to social conservatism and younger people who have joined the movement. The grooming of children to be transvestites is evidently more obvious and most certainly more difficult to censor than that of homosexuality. That conservatives are actually making massive gains on the issue of transgenderism despite court precedent. And I'm referring to the court case where Neil Gorsuch sided with the liberals on the bench on the issue of transgenderism because he's a Episcopalian, by the way. But these gains were largely preceded by state legislature gains tackling the issue of abortion. You see, these people who got elected to outlaw abortion are still in office, and now they're taking on the issue of transgenderism. That's what's happened. And whereby in the past we had Republican governors like John Kasich fight pro-life legislation, we are now seeing, and those governors are no longer a thing. We are now seeing pro-transgenderism governors fight this issue as well, like Spencer Cox. But I'll go on to name a lot more pro-transgenderism governors in the Republican Party. Just you wait. Abortion represents an impasse because to be pro-abortion is to be in favor, which is to be in favor of legalized abortion, including cases of rape and incest, is to deny preborn humans or preborn babies our human life. To be pro-abortion is to adopt a fundamental lie. Similarly, transgenderism is the belief that a man who feels pretty can become a woman, that gender is not an immutable characteristic. The lie the pro-transgenderism person has to tell is that a man is a woman when he identifies as one. As long as mankind has been around, we knew what a woman was. And we knew that a pregnant woman was carrying human life inside of her. And that life had value because of that. We had to lie to convince ourselves otherwise. And you see that with the abortion movement in its past. They had to lie about the science. They had to conjure the clump of cells narrative as though that whether the formation of a human being, which by the way, human beings are relatively formed very early on in the womb. They're not like plus size, but like in a mini-sized version, you see a human body with all its parts. The issue of transgenderism has the unique opportunity to reset the Republican Party to be more conservative after it largely gave up the issue after the issue of homosexuality in 2015. This would be comparable to how the issue of abortion shifted the Republican Party to the right by the creation of a coalition of Catholics and evangelicals to form a moral majority. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, Americans will see a dynamic shift to the right as many moderates will accept the decision because moderates are sheep. They will go along with whatever the government says. That's what a moderate means. They are pro-status quo, thus shifting the Overton window to the right. Additionally, transgenderism's lack of acceptance and propensity for child abuse could be the undoing of America's acceptance of homosexuality, because these two sexual deviances are joined by the same acronym. So basically what I'm arguing is that we could flip the slippery slope the other way, turn that bottom of the slippery slope into a trampoline and go back the other way. I think that is possible. And I think you're seeing that increasingly on the right. You see that increasingly in younger movements on the right that are increasingly connecting the debauchery in our society with our nation's decline. Because it's an unavoidable connection. You cannot avoid the connection between, if you hate something like cancel culture, what do you think unleashed cancel culture? 2015, certainly right after that, where Mike Pence had to cave on like the RFRA law, which is a law in several states in the United States. He caved on that issue because of massive corporations and the NFL bullying the state of Indiana. Where do you think a lot of this started, or took off, I should say? 2015, the issue of homosexuality, where rainbow jihad basically became a lamb's blood to paint over your door, and you have to kowtow to the movement in order to avoid being canceled by the angel of death. So, and yes, I would also argue that transgenderism is deeply tied to child abuse and pedophilia, as is homosexuality, but that's a topic for another video. And that's why they want to groom children. That's why they want, and grooming works. The statistics, from what we can tell, looking at Gen Z, and certainly millennials to a little bit lesser of a degree, grooming works. The social engineering that we see in public schools is effective. That's why they passed the law in Florida. That's why we should be passing that law everywhere else. So let's finish up. Politically, it should be just as toxic for a Republican to support transgenderism as men like Spencer Cox, Larry Hogan, Kristi Noem, Eric Holcomb, Asa Hutchinson, and whatever other pro-transgenderism Republican governors have in the past and present. It should be just as unacceptable for them to do that as it is for them to support abortion. Additionally, for a transvestite calling himself or herself a conservative should be seen as oxymoronic as though they just came out in support of abortion on demand. Ultimately, we are trying to conserve objective truth as a governing standard for our society. Transgenderism represents the biggest affront to objective truth in politics since abortion. So that's how I'll conclude. Let me know what you think about what I think. My name is Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like content like that, I haven't written too many columns lately, but this topic's been on my mind for a while, so you definitely want to head over to evangelicaldarkweb.org. Support that RSS feed, which is free, by the way. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for an RSS feed. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you haven't already done that, that's the least you can do. But if you really want to support this kind of ministry, you can head on over to evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. It is a Patreon-like system because we don't use Patreon. We built our own Patreon because Patreon censors conservative content. So with that said, that's really all I got to say about that for today. Have a blessed day, and I will catch you on the next one.